Hello, my name is Jimmy and this is the 2022 Infiniti QX60. It's the premium or posh version of the Nissan Pathfinder. In terms of pricing, well, it starts just right off where the Pathfinder ends off. Here in Canada, the QX60 starts at $54,995 and you can go as high as the Autograph Edition, that's $67,995. This is the Sensory Edition, which means it's one down from top. So it has a bench in the second row, making it a little bit more family orientated. But how does it compare to like the Acura MDX or the RX 350L? Let's take a look, starting with the looks. Starting with the front, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below, but I think this is a very, very elegant front end. It's a lot better than the previous QX60, and it's more fluid in its design than the Pathfinder that it's based on. Coming off to the side, the chrome that's on the front matches with the chrome down on the bottom, as well as around the windows. 20-inch wheels are on this model here. I got blacked out mirrors, this kind of two-tone effect. On the Autograph Edition, so the top trim, you can actually get a two-tone roof as well. It's a really sculpted and clean look. And then around back, we get this really clean LED design back here. It's just really, really nice. And the only thing I would say about the back end is, well, this kind of matches the front. I mean, I guess it's supposed to kind of mimic exhaust tips, but it doesn't. And I'm not a big fan of it, but you can let me know once again in the comment section down below. In the trunk here, it's actually quite decent. Obviously, there is an automatic liftgate, and that is standard, even on the base trim. You don't get kicked to open, you have to step up for that. But it's not bad back here. There's 16 cubic feet of space behind the third row, and there's a little bit more storage underneath. This is actually quite big. It's a lot bigger than last year when they had the Bose subwoofer in here from before. So this is definitely expanded. If you fold the seats down, you get 40.7 cubic feet, so you can put a large stroller and whatnot in here. It's actually not too bad, and there's just, well, plenty of space for anything that you really want. But let's go to the cabin inside. Getting into the third row isn't difficult. There's a button here on the second row, which can easily slide that second row forward, and, well, you can gain access to the third row itself. Headroom is okay, legroom is decent, but it's certainly not the biggest in its class. There are definitely better options if you are going to be using the third row more often. As for the second row, it's actually pretty nice in here. I got enough headroom for me at 5'11", and if I scoot forward a little bit, I still have a decent amount of legroom and, well, don't have to sacrifice that much for the people in the third row. In this specific version, I have the bench seat here, and like I said, it's just a little bit more family friendly because with the bench seat, you can put a third child seat in the center. On the driver's side, I got a Collect Lane. On the middle, I have a Flow, as well as on the passenger side, I have a Fünf. As you can see, 3 across does fit in this cabin. And you can put 2 more child seats in the third row, but they will only be forward facing as rear facing seats will not fit. In terms of upper anchors, I just want to mention, do make sure to take a look at your owner's manual. The upper anchors go on the inside of the headrest rather than the outside like some other vehicles do. So just make sure you check that. Something that's actually kind of cool, the QX60 has the seat kind of ejection button. And what it does is slides the seat forward so you can get to that third row. But if your child seat is forward facing like this, using the lower anchors, so yes, there's not a lot of child seats that can do that, and the weight capacity says that you probably wouldn't be able to do this for long, but if you have this configuration for the short duration that it is, you can press the button and nothing will happen because this seat is actually quite heavy, and because of that, it's not able to bounce forward. But if it was a lighter seat, you press the button and it springs forward so you can get access to the third row without taking out your child seat. But like I said, there's only so little car seats that have the lower anchors that you can use for forward facing and still be under the weight limit. So yeah, it's very, very, very limited. Not a lot of child seats would have this. So yes, it's a feature, and I know they like heavily put this in their advertisement, but it's not all that useful. Let's jump to the front seats. All right, as for the front seats, well, it's actually quite comfortable here. The leather is supple and soft. I can't believe there's one more trim above this with better leather. Like, this is actually really good already. I got heated and cooled seats and a massaging seat button that is off to the side instead of in the middle or in the infotainment system, which is a little weird, but at least it's easier to access. And when you click it, there's a adjust button that you can click on to change it from refreshing, relaxing, or lumbar. So you can change how it feels a little bit, but there's only 3 modes. And it's certainly not the best massaging seats that I've ever sat in. But in this class anyways, the MDX doesn't get massaging seats. The Type S does, but the regular one doesn't. And the RX, I don't think the RX gets that neither. So this is already one step up from the competition. In front of me, this typical, Nissan steering wheel, really. Because if you hide the middle, that's the Rogue and the Pathfinder buttons. That's exactly the same. But I think it's fine. The leather is better in here, and you get really nice stitching on the side, get paddle shifters on the rear, and really nice stalks. Behind that, a full digital cluster. It's the same one that's used in the Rogue as well as the Pathfinder. And, it works. It's a really nice looking cluster. It has been updated for Infiniti, so it has their font and their color scheme, but you can totally tell that it is, used in other Nissan products, but I don't think that's really too bad. Same thing with heads-up display. It works, it has everything I need, and it's a good display. And the final display, the infotainment. This menu here is it's a little different. It's exactly the same system as basically most Nissan products, except you don't use like 33% of your screen. You only use the left side, which is kind of smart because if you're reaching up to like the far right, it's harder to reach. You can only really reach the left side anyways. So I don't think that's too big of an issue. But when using CarPlay, you don't get the full experience of this large screen. It's like an 8-inch screen, 7-inch screen. You're definitely not getting the entire width of that display. You can have a clock on the right, which is kind of old school Infiniti if that's what you like. You can also have a digital clock if you're not a big fan of analog. You can show other stuff, but it's still, to my eyes, just a waste of the display itself. Further down below, we have more things that Infiniti did on their vehicles to make it a little bit less intuitive, but a little bit fancier looking. This climate control system, along with a few dedicated media buttons like a volume knob, thank you for still giving me that. But the rest of the system, like if you just tap on the screen, like nothing would happen. You can tap all you want because you actually need to press it. And if you click on it, that's when it activates. There's a little vibration motor that you can click and hear that motor on. So when you click it, I don't know if you can hear that, but it's just so weird. And that's the way to control it. I mean, as you're driving along, you're gonna have to look down to really find those buttons. That's the only downfall about it. Most of the time you can just hit auto and it's fine, but it's just not as intuitive as physical buttons, as not as intuitive as like the one that's in the Pathfinder. Down below, shifter, it's a little weird looking, but it works well. And that's really it. You got a drive mode selector, some cup holders. Yeah. Let's go for a drive though and feel exactly how this QX60 feels like, because under the hood, the engine's the same, but the transmission, that's all new. Let's go. All right, on the road with the QX60. Underneath the hood, there's a 3.5-liter V6, naturally aspirated with no turbos. It makes 290 horsepower and 270 pound-feet of torque. All that is paired to a good old 9-speed automatic to all 4 wheels. It's actually a pretty good drivetrain. I mean, the CVT, some may have said that it's horrible, it's noisy, and I mean, yes, older Nissan CVTs were not the best, but I think, the later ones, they're not that bad. Yes, they also had some reliability issues, but they got better over time, so it's not that bad, right? But I'm sure with this 9-speed, it's going to be better, and it definitely feels better because, there are shifts. It feels like a normal transmission should. On the road, everything is quite muted, which you kind of expect in this kind of luxury bracket. Road noise is kept to a minimum. Tire noise is pretty good. Wind noise is basically non-existent. In terms of the ride, well, it's smooth. It's not sporty like the Acura MDX is. You throw it around a corner, well, it's not as sure-footed, but I don't think anyone's really throwing this around any corners anyways, so that really shouldn't matter. I mean, when you're driving around normally in the QX60, it's just a relaxing place to be. And especially if you throw on that massaging seat, it just makes it a little bit better. And that's really what the QX60 is about. Just a relaxing place to be. And you throw on the, well, adaptive cruise control and the lane keep assist, and you barely have to do anything. You still have to. It's not as good as some other vehicles where you can basically be hands-off. You still have to like adjust it every now and then, and you have to keep your hands on the steering wheel. It's not that good of a system. But other than that, I think it's actually a really good car. The question now remains, is it as good as the MDX or the RX? Well, that's hard to say. I mean, being a brand new car, you can't tell its reliability. That's one of the biggest factors. The Lexus RX is known for the reliability because, well, it's an archaic architecture. The engine that's in that has been used for many, many years, and the RX hasn't been updated forever as well. So because of that, it's, well, like super reliable. The longevity of that car is outstanding. But I mean, you get into the RX and it's just a little bit older, isn't it? If you are, well, of the younger generation, you're probably looking at the MDX or this because it has more toys and has more things that, well, the younger generation would, well, just like more. And if you are, I think the MDX, in terms of the driving factor, is a little bit better. But in terms of like just the interface with the infotainment, there's nothing that can beat this because it has a touchscreen. The MDX with this kind of touchpad, yeah, I did not like that. It was not a good system at all. It's hard to use, and I mean, over time, I'm sure you'll get used to it, but this is just so much easier. That's really what it comes down to. Overall, the QX60 is a great family vehicle. It has all the space that you need, the powertrain is nice and smooth, the cabin is very luxurious, the stitching across it, it's just a really nice place to be. There's really no faults that I can really find. Sure, it could be better in some areas, like the powertrain can be more efficient, and the infotainment system can be wider screen, and well, the climate control can be easier to use. But for the most part, when you're driving along in this car, you're not gonna notice those things. When you're living with this vehicle, you're gonna get used to a lot of the items and the quirks that's along with it. There's a big panoramic sunroof, there's climate control for all 3 rows, you can fit kids in the back with no problems, and it can tow 6,000 pounds. And in this category, that's actually quite, well, good. And I think that's really it. I mean, this, as tested, it's 65,000 Canadian dollars, so it's surely not the cheapest, but it's not that much. Considering the Jeep Grand Cherokee L that I tested not too long ago, that was more than this. And I don't think in the Jeep I had that much better of an experience comparing to this. This, well, it's actually just a really good buy overall. In any case, thank you so much for watching this video. Like the video if you do, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.